Hello and welcome to episode 86 of the Mind and Muse Crafts podcast. I am your host, Caroline, and I want to thank you for joining me today. So, welcome back, and today I am very grateful that you are joining me for this little chat on the crafty side of my life, which time and time again I have described this part of my life as the time that I take to work on crafty projects, mostly crochet, once in a while a bit of needle crafting, and maybe some knitting. So today I mainly have crochet projects to share with you because it's been difficult readapting to being at home, and I was ill during probably the first weeks when I got back, and my crochet mojo, as it is called, was just affected by it. I just had the time but couldn't find the mindset to sit down and work with yarn. So a little bit lacking maybe in that sense, but I think little by little, watching what you guys have been up to, reading about what other crafty friends have been up to, it kind of like comes back to you. Plus the fact that I've got all that yarn sitting there and I want to put it to use, well, yes, it does not allow me to wander too far away from my crafty habits. So today I want to share with you a couple of things that I have been working on, and as usual share with you some new things I have learned, or just share with you things the way that I do them that I might not have shared them with you before. First and foremost, you might notice, because it is a quite bright combination, this like mustardy yellow and this lilac, but these earrings, I crocheted them up maybe a couple of weeks back when I was thinking about, the 15th is coming up of September and I need to get a recording made, but had done very little work, and so just didn't want to get on here to occupy your time without actually having things that I wanted to share. But during that time I made these earrings. They are not an original design by me. I was just interested in them because I saw somebody in Pinterest had posted a chart with the symbols to make what appeared to me to be a teardrop earring. And you all know, if you've been here for a while, that I am not obsessed, but I do like the shape of the teardrop. It turns out that when I made it, it does not look as teardroppy, and I am pretty sure that I followed the instructions correctly, but they're a bit more elongated, the ones that I have made, than the ones that I have made from my patterns. And I obviously, you can tell that I did not add the beads to them because I wasn't sure how much I liked the color. I wanted a pair of light purple earrings for a while now. So I was at a craft store and I saw this, and I thought it was the color that I wanted. But looking at it now, and after I added a bit of glue to the backings of this, the color is showing up more lilac and less maybe violet, which is the color that I'm looking for. This is Omega. It's a Omega 100% nylon yarn, specifically the ones that I use for earrings is the number 2, because it's very, like, I guess what I would call lace weight. And I don't have the ball band here, but I found it on the interwebs, so there it is, Omega number 2, and you really wouldn't need much of it to make earrings. I mean, a couple of grams, and so if you buy one of these things, you can make a lot, but a lot of earrings. Fortunately, they are not very expensive, but I do end up with a lot of this yarn just laying around that I might need to long-term think about putting them all like into some form of wall art or something like that. I like the fact of using them for earrings, as I have said before, because they practically reject water, repel water. They don't really absorb water, so that you can use them and they can get wet and they don't lose their shape or anything like that. They're very light, so if somebody has sensitivity in their earlobes, like with age, sometimes we develop that, and we've worn a lot of heavy earrings in our youth, and therefore the little holes become very sensitive. Well, it's a good alternative. It's a good alternative, and they really last. They don't tarnish, and so I like using nylon yarn. I usually work them up with a 1.25 hook. I think at some point I have tried to work them up even with a 1mm hook, and I could still do it as long as you keep your tension loose so your little stitches don't become too little that you can't see them well to work into, and over time that becomes an issue with eyesight, right? So yes, I did finish those. I was going to say I didn't have any finished objects for today, but I did finish those. Well, actually, I finished a couple of things. One of the projects that I was working on, that I began working on, because continuing from the last couple of episodes with that idea, reusing some garment that we have in our closets that needs a second life, I chose from my closet a top that was a memory from Spain, I believe. And it had like this lace work in the top. Obviously machine made. Well, not obviously, I don't know if you can tell, but it is machine made. And then the bottom was just this knit fabric. It was getting too tight on me at the bottom, but the top was fine. So I decided to cut it off, like under, let's say, my bust area here, and add crochet to it. The pattern that I picked to add my crochet was the crochet Tern Tunic. The Tern Tunic by Haley Bailey. And so I liked the bottom of that. And I had this yarn that was left over from when I was working my tapestry crochet for my sister's memoir, wall art memoir that I was working on. This was left over, and it looked close enough to the yellow color that I decided I would give it a try, but I ran out. And when I went back to the store, it's like a fabric store, craft store, that I had purchased it, they didn't have any more of this color. So that really bothered me. Notice that I connected my stitches here using the needle and thread to create my chain stitches, like I had shown you a couple of episodes back. So I did that all around. And then I simply attached to those chain stitches and began working the bottom part of the Tern Tunic. And I thought that was going to look pretty nice, but lo and behold, ran out of thread, and I don't have the ball band to the thread, so I have no idea what color it is, and I'm thinking that I might have to start all over again. You'll notice that it's got these like triangular shaped holes. It's very lacy. But because I was using 100% mercerized cotton, I don't have the drape or the softness that I was actually going for, that I would have at least liked to have. So yeah, I don't know. I might have to start over again. Maybe I'll check with Clarissa Beth, and if she, Clarissa is my daughter in case you're here for the first time, and if she wants to keep it that way, I'll keep it. If not, I will just rip back the yarn. I think I'll rip it back up to where I started, and I'll just leave that one there and just use another yarn. Or the other option is to use a second color. Which, yeah, would be a possibility. So, sorry that didn't get, this has a little button at the back, like a butterfly, and I was very hoping that it kind of would look nice as a tunic. You know, this just continues to open out and open out and open out. I don't know. I'll have to think about that for a while and see what I want to do. But that kind of like killed the mood for wanting to crochet, because that didn't come out. And took me a while before I got back onto thinking about what I wanted to crochet. And the next thing I thought about was, well, I do want another bathroom set, crochet bathroom set for my bathroom. So I started looking through, actually, the day that I had went back to see if I could find that yarn, that thread, I found another yarn that called my attention. That one I do have the ball band for, and that was a Premier Parfait Chunky, and it is in kind of like a velvety yarn. It is in the colorway Toffee, and it's super bulky. It's a super bulky by Premier Yarns. So I think I had a little bit left of it, but I don't know where I stashed it, so I'm just going to show you what I worked on. I was working on the elongated, what's it called? The elongated shell toilet seat cover. So the first picture shows you how it would look on top, and the second picture shows you how it looks with the top lifted up. And I liked the pattern. I was looking for something that would be a little bit of fall. But I liked the flower pattern. It seemed easy. It seemed that I could work it up quickly. So this is the yarn worked up. It's like this very thick, velvety, super bulky velvety yarn. And so I would have had enough to make the top, but I wanted to make a whole set. So I used two colors here. I worked up the flower and several, let me see. After the flower, 1, 2, 3, 3 rounds of the repeat pattern, and then I started reducing to create the back, which continues the clusters of 3 double crochets as if you were doing just granny stitch around and around, and then ended with several rows of single crochet, so that it would give it that type of elasticity where it would actually stay fitted on my toilet seat cover. Now it says elongated here, and I thought I had an elongated toilet seat cover, but it appears that the one that she made this for is even more elongated than mine. So I did have to knock off some rows and make that adjustment of adding the single crochets and reducing the number of rows. So that I'm thinking, did I reduce I might have even reduced the hook. This is a free pattern, so I can check it out for you. She used Red Hard Comfort, but I didn't have that yarn, so I used this velvet yarn with a 5.5 millimeter hook. So I used a 5.5 millimeter hook with this super bulky. And even though it was larger than I wanted, so I only worked up to I can tell by the spaces between the groups of double crochets. I worked up to round 11, round 10. Round 10. Yep. I worked up to round 9, skipped round 10 and 11, and went on to round 12, which is the round that you see does this here. When, let's see, you do a treble crochet 2 rows below into around the skip stitches of the 2 rows below, and one I skipped 1 and one I skipped 3 between the clusters of double crochets. And so you kind of like reach down to join that and then reach back up. And so I only did that with 2 rows. I think she does it with probably 4, because she goes 5 and then she goes 7. So I had to take several off because it was really too long, and I still think it's too big, but that was because I used such a super bulky yarn instead of just a worsted weight. But it fits well enough that I can wear it. So I did the back part, which is the back side of the toilet cover, and I was also able to work up the tank cover. Here's a tank cover. The tank cover, I made one of the flowers and then used a pattern that I found in my Granny Square book that had a similar flower and turned it into a square. So I'll write that in the description box below, because I didn't bring that with me, so that you can check that out if you are interested in. Basically, you have to have, I believe, a 12 point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It has to be a 12-point flower, and you can create your square around it. So I created 2 squares, and then I went around the squares, just joined them sort of on the outside with clusters of double crochets and corners. So what did I do? 1, 2, 3 rounds of just working clusters. The first time around I had, well, in each of them I believe I had 2 double crochet clusters, and then I went for my single crochets. And this is a short one, so it doesn't cover up the whole tank. It only covers up the top of the tank, but it worked well also. It also worked well. Well enough so that I can just sit it on top and it matches my toilet seat cover. Now in addition to that, I wanted a floor mat, but the floor mat, I had no yarn. I didn't have enough yarn of either of those left over to make it. So I went with a technique that I used a while back, quite a while back, in one of my episodes, where it says here that was episode 20 of my podcast, so you can look that up, episode 20, and I did a similar project where I made a huge ball of yarn with in this case I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strands of yarn. In this yarn I have some cotton, I have some cotton acrylic, and I have some DK, I have some worsted, I have some 100% acrylic, Stylecraft. And so not only did I join different gauges of yarn, I also joined, and different colors, I also joined different types, because I always like to have a little bit of cotton in my bathroom rugs, or whatever you call them. Floor mats, if you want to say it that way. So I've just started on that one. Well, I didn't just start in terms of time, but I've only started in terms of how much I've done. And basically, I am just doing a back and forth pattern where I do a certain amount of these faux bobble stitches here, which is, in this case, what I'm using is just one single crochet and followed by one treble crochet or a double treble, and then I do that every so often. And then for the turnaround on the back, I use a single crochet, and so I go back and forth in that sense. Well, that's my plan. That's my plan. I kind of slowed down because I thought that maybe this yarn, it might look like a lot here, but because it's such a thick collection of yarns, I don't know if I'll have enough to do the size that I want, but because I haven't really sat down to do the calculations, I know I have 337 yards because that is the yarn length to which I cut all my other yarns, all my other leftovers. They were all leftovers. For this, I am using an 8mm hook. This is an L. This is clover. They're plastic. Once they get past a certain size, they turn plastic. And so I did pull out a couple of stitches here. But let me just get them back in. And so that's something that I hope to finish soon. And that way, these are not the exact color, probably, of this, but I thought they went well. So I chose for my stash creams, browns, greens, and some blues because I thought this color here had some light greens and some blues in it. So I tried to make something that would look like that, and I think it'll go okay. It's not exact, but it will go fine. So yeah, trying to change the look of my bathroom for the upcoming fall, but anyway, I don't have a lot more to share with you in that sense. So let's see. I've got the one, what color is this? The hazelnut color from the Skein Tones. Decided to use it in that project. The Bernat Softy Cotton in a bluish green color that I purchased a while back. There's a Heartland that I received. This is in Kings Canyon. I received a while back by mistake on an Amazon order, and so that's in there too. And there are style crafts of different colors. And so I'll be able to share maybe that with you the next time. Let's see. The last project that I wanted to share with you today is a project that I began recently because I have a daughter whose birthday is coming up, and I wanted to gift her something that she doesn't have. And usually when I want to gift something that somebody doesn't have, I gift crochet because there are not a lot of people in the family who have crochet. And so I was inspired by a sock design that I was tech editing, and that should come out soon for the month of October maybe, because you know that October in the crafty world is sometimes referred to as Socktober, and people start making the wool socks in preparation for the upcoming colder months. But that's not on my side of the world. We don't need to do that. We don't get cold here basically ever, and so I just make socks because I like to. And but where my daughter lives, she does get winter, so she will be able to use them. And she's a big fan of Hocus Pocus, and that movie is the sequel to the original movie is said to be coming out soon. So I wanted to make her a sock that had the words Hocus Pocus on them. So once again, no ball bands. Yeah, I might have them. I think I did save them. So I was inspired by a sock design in terms of the toe and the measurements and whatnot. I've always made my socks toe up in crochet, or I've once made a cuff down, and even in knitting I do them also toe up. I just prefer that method. And I always do short row heels, be it in crochet or in knitting, and so that's not different. And the only, I guess, different part is actually the graph that I created using Stitch Fiddle with the letters to form the words Hocus Pocus. So on one side we will have, actually guess I could have put it on a sock blocker, couldn't I? On one side we'll have the word Hocus Pocus, and on the other side I am thinking of placing one of the characters. I believe I've been told that she is the main character for terms of the Sanders sisters that come out in Hocus Pocus. So I had to make this graph, which only has 15 stitches, so I kind of like inserted my chart into the stitches of this sock pattern. And if I may, I will show you maybe. So the other sock I am planning on making, I believe this is Winifred or Winnie. It is a very typical and common silhouette of the witch that you can find anywhere on the internet, and I just drew it in Stitch Fiddle. So I'm hoping that'll work. The Hocus Pocus was 15 stitches across, but she is 25 stitches across, which means that she'll probably take up this whole side, because this sock has 52 stitches, half of that is 26, so I'll be having her all the way on that side of the second sock. This is the left sock, and so the right side, I have to invert these two sides so that it's got a very nice join on it that I find very attractive. I just kind of like could imagine that up the back of a sock to kind of simulate those nylons that they used to sell. Anyway, so it's not particularly a pattern. I don't think I'll write it up or anything like that, because this is just a personal gift for my daughter. And it's toe up in the round, 52 stitches. It's got a circular toe as opposed to a wedged toe, but you can use whatever toe you like. The gray, the tonal, is from Emmy Couture. She had a sale out. This doesn't have a date on it, but quite a while back. And so she was going to stop dyeing and put her yarns on sale. I picked up quite a bit of it. This is called Junco, or Junco, if we apply correct Spanish pronunciation to the word. It is 80% superwash wool and 20% polyamide, 357 yards. And then the green, I have no idea what, because it was I think it was a mini of 30 grams of a mini that did not have a ball band to it. So I must have purchased it in some set of minis, and I didn't have, or I didn't keep the ball band. So that is, I can just tell you it's a ghastly looking green. I don't know what the colorway is. I don't know who dyed it, but it was hand dyed. And it was just in my stash. I had chosen a purple from Knit Picks, but it turned out that the purple was also a tonal, and so it kind of got lost in the gray tonal. It didn't stand out as much as I wanted it to, so I ripped back and switched to the green, which I thought would be okay, because even though it's not the exact same color, I do need to make Winifred's, the dress part of her silhouette, using a green, and so I can repeat that color in the second sock, and I thought that would, you know, have some type of harmony in it and some type of coordination. So I don't have that very orangey orange that's of her hair from the movie, so I'm just going to be using this one, which is kind of like a burnt orange, but it'll have to do for me. And so this sock is not completed. It's missing the ribbing, which I'll get around to today. And then I did not do what I said about the advice that I've always given you, where I told you to always make like a toe and a toe, a foot and a foot, a heel and a heel, so that you make sure that your both socks come out the same. So I didn't do that. I was too lazy to split my yarn to do that. And so once I finish this, I have to get on to the second sock before I forget how many rounds I did and all that. I did use a 3.25 millimeter hook for the foot and the heel, toe, foot, and heel. But when I got to the color work, because I felt that I am usually a tight crocheter, so I was afraid that since you have to carry yarn and you have floats and things, that it would become too tight and it wouldn't go up her leg. So I went with a 3.5 millimeter hook for the top part of the sock. I have a little video that I want to share with you about how I carry my yarn to do the color work. And so I'm going to share that with you now. Now for the color work, I have already completed 8 of the 9 stitches that had to be made at the top. Because the interesting part obviously gets when you have to pick up your second color. This is my last one, 9. But since it is the last one, I'm not going to complete it with that color. I'm going to let go of my gray. Actually, I'm going to bring it to the front because I'm going to carry it. And then I am going to pick up my green. Now you'll notice that my green yarn is to the left, which is one of the things that happens when you are crocheting color work in the round. That you pick up your green at one spot, you finish using that, you let it go, and then when you come around again, your color, instead of being where you need it, which is at this corner, will be at the opposite corner. And that's something that you have to decide how to deal with in your color work. And so I just wanted to show you how I deal with it. So I'm going to bring this one to the front because I'm always carrying my gray, but I don't want to carry my green all the way around. First of all, because I don't have a lot of it, and second, because it would make my sock too bulky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn from this left side and bring it through to complete my stitch. Now, when I do so, I'm going to make sure to leave some slack. I don't want the green that I have picked up to be too tight. So I want to make sure that I'm leaving some slack here as I pull it over. So I'm going to secure the green that I slacked and the gray that I want to carry at the back. And I am going to go through my first stitch. There's my first stitch. But then I'm going to go under the gray and also under the slack of green that I carried across and complete my stitch there. I am doing single crochet in the back loop only. I have one more to go. Pull it up, but I'm not going to complete it because if you'll notice here, or if you'll remember from before, I need to change my color. It has to be gray, green, gray, green 2, gray 2, green 2. So I need to complete this one with my gray. So I'm going to complete it with my gray, but I want to continue carrying my green across. So I'll go under to the back loop of the next stitch, pull up a loop and complete it. That's not extraordinary, you've seen that and done it before. So here's my second one again. I'd have to change color for the next one, so I'm going to bring this one to the front and I'm going to pull through with my green. Then I'm going to complete the last 2 stitches, back loop only, with my green. But since, now what I wanted you to notice is that I am going through the loop that was created when I carried my green yarn to the right. It's just the way I do it, because if you have it loose enough, I think it makes it look tidier, and I'll show you in a minute what it looks like after we complete this. So I'm going to pull through my green, but I'm going to be changing back to my gray, so I'm just going to let go of my green and complete this with the gray, making sure I pull it a little bit to make sure that it's not bulging anywhere. And there it is. Now I'm going to adjust that last stitch of my green, and I don't need to carry anymore. All my subsequent stitches until I reach the join here. All these stitches were made in gray. Okay, but like I said, that is nothing special. You've all seen people crochet before. I just wanted to show you the way that I have completed it. So let's take a look at the back. Now, notice that well, if you don't notice, I'll show you. I have 2 balls of my green. I split my green yarn into 2 small balls because I didn't want to have to carry my green all the way across 12 stitches, 15 stitches, because that would be like too much. So I split it into 2, and I have one ball for each of my columns of words, of letters here, my columns of letters. And on this occasion, I didn't need to do my first column at all. But in the second one, then, I pulled across my green from the left corner to the right, and then I crocheted over it like I was showing you. So this is how it looks. Let's show you how some of it looks. So as I have worked up my letters, every time I got to a corner, when I reached the need to complete my letter, I would pull the green to the right and crochet over it. Pull the green to the right the next time around and crochet over it. And so the only way you get an, essentially a long float is here, because in between letters there's always like a small space. So this is the only one that I didn't work over. I could have worked over this when I kind of like brought it up when I did my gray, but I didn't. I don't like exceptionally long floats because I think that you can kind of get your toes and your nails stuck into them when you work through them, but I'm okay with these short ones that occur in the spaces of the letters. I don't think they will be much of a nuisance. But that way of doing it just makes it look kind of cleaner for me. You just need to be careful that you're not pulling too tight on your yarn, and that when you do drag your yarn over to pick it up, you do it loosely. So you leave some slack, so to say. It's not pulled tautly. You leave some slack so that as you crochet over it, it will tighten. So that's the way that I do my color work. And it doesn't work out too bad. I'll show you a bit more than what I was able to show you in the video. So you can see how this is toe up. So I'm reading this chart bottom up because I don't want the word to come out upside down. That might have been a thing, but I didn't want that to happen. So I worked this way. And so you can see my floats when I connect my letters, but all the others, this line that's created here is created from carrying up my yarn and then crocheting over it. So you can't really see the float. There is no float. I didn't leave a float across the letters, but you can see like this sort of thick hem. Kind of looks like a seam, but it's not a seam. It's just the effect of pulling up my yarn. And they feel very nice. So you really can't feel those little seams that are forming there. And I'm very happy with it. I'm very glad to have completed this one. I'm very anxious to work on the other one because I started out being very anxious with the project because, as I say in the video, working crochet in the round has the problem where your yarn is never where it's supposed to be when you need to pick it up. So I had to figure that out in a way that I felt comfortable with, that wasn't too messy or too fidgety. And I think that the way that I explained to you in the video is the one that I like the most. So with Winifred, I'll do something similar. Because of the fact that she has 25 stitches across, I might create bobbins. Instead of having the little balls of yarns like you saw in the video, I'll create bobbins. And so then I will have, let's say, bobbins every 10 stitches, every 8 stitches. And that way I only have to pull my yarn back across those 8 stitches. But, you know, I'll work forward here and have a bobbin to pick up. I'll work forward here and have a bobbin to pick up, and go back and forth that way, so that both on the hair and on the dress, and that way I can continue to use the method that I shared with you, which I already feel that I feel comfortable with. So that's my plan for the upcoming week. Actually, for the upcoming days. I completed this sock in about, I think, 3 days, but it was 3 days because I was thinking about that color work and how I was going to do it. Now that I have it down packed, I should be able to complete Winnie in a couple of days also. So I'm very happy with that. And like I say, I won't be writing it up or anything. Maybe a blog post, I don't know. If you ever check out my blog, but I do try and post a little bit more in detail about some of the projects and some of the things that I learn from those projects to kind of like help the general public, not only those that watch the podcast, but I really have never looked in to see if anybody actually reads that blog. It just gives me peace, and it just keeps me focused to upload to that blog every once in a while. And if you are following the news anywhere, you know that recently we were also hit by a tropical storm. It turned into a hurricane once it left the island, so we were hit directly, and the tropical storm crossed over us and converted into a hurricane once it crossed the island. We were lucky in that sense, but there was a lot of rain associated with that tropical storm, a lot of winds that were strong enough to do some harm to our electrical system, which has not been the same since Maria. And so yeah, it did do some harm. We're fine. Nothing happened to us or to our properties, so we've been fine. Most of you, we've said time and again that we live in a solar-powered house. This is not our first go with storms, so we learn to prepare and be calm and to try and make the recuperation the best as possible. And so it was obviously a lot better than Maria, but yeah, there were parts of the island that were in the direct exit route of this tropical storm. So there was devastation more in the southwestern part of the island. But we're okay. So thank all of you who were expressing your concerns, writing to me, and such. I'm always very grateful for those of you that follow me and that come back every 2 weeks or so looking for me and seeing what I'm up to. And so thank you once again for being my support and for being my friends and for caring about what I do and what happens to me. So although I had thought that I would not be returning to take care of my grandson, it just turns out that I am. I will be returning next week. So if a podcast goes up the 15th of October, it will do so from Alabama and not from my home in Puerto Rico. And so I don't know if that's going to happen because the grandson is older, and when I showed him to you the last time, he was not sitting up on his own. He now sits up on his own, and he is now beginning to practice the movements for crawling. So he is going to be a handful, and I don't know actually how much time I'll have on my hands for all of the other things that I like to do. Plus, you guys know that I travel light, so I don't like to take tons of yarn with me and tons of projects, and so I just have to sit down and really think about what's going to happen with that. So until we meet again, take care of yourself, keep yourself safe, keep yourself healthy, and as long as you can, keep crafting. Bye for now.